So now we have a basic understanding what is tokens and what's the purpose of it during authentication and authorization flow. In this video, let's try to understand what are the advantages of token-based authentication compared to traditional ways of authenticating the user. The very primary advantage of using tokens is it will save you from the security risk of sharing the credentials over the network again and again for each and every request that you are sending to the backend. Because in the token based authentication, you only pass the credentials during the initial login, and post that all the subsequent operations will carry on based upon the token that got generated by the backend. Think of a scenario where you have booked a room inside a hotel, and only during the initial conversation with the receptionist you will prove yourself by giving your ID proofs. Later on, the receptionist will give you an access card to your room. So access card is like a token where you don't have to go to receptionist or security each and every time to prove yourself, but instead you have a token, temporary token, which is given by the hotel staff itself, and the same token you can use whenever you want to access any hotel related facilities like gym, restaurant, lift, and your room. In the same manner, tokens also work once you prove your authentication to the system by passing your credentials. It will generate a token and give you as a response, which you will be used for all the further subsequent requests that you are going to make to the server. And at the same time, with the help of tokens, you can invalidate them if you see any suspicious activities instead of invalidating the credentials of the users. If you invalidate the credentials of the user will be affected, so that he again has to call the call center or reset his password, which is a cumbersome process. Instead, if you see any suspicious activities over the network or any security breaches happening inside your system, you can simply invalidate these tokens, which will force the user again to log in with his original credentials. At the same time, you can also set the lifespan to these tokens. And suppose if I generate a token and set the lifespan as 24 hours, the token will be valid for 1 day. After 1 day, again the user has to validate with his original credentials. Similarly, using tokens, not only we can maintain the authentication and authorization of the user, we can also share some extra information like what's the user details like email, his mobile number, his roles, authorities, which you can pass inside the token in an encrypted or encoded format to the client, so that they can also leverage that information on the client side or any consuming side where they need this information. Next, token will give you the reusability. Like if you have many separate servers, especially in microservices scenarios, we can use the same token that got generated from the single authorization server, and all the subsequent other servers that are staying inside my microservices can use the same token to validate the user details. The next primary advantage of token-based authentication is we don't maintain cookies on the browser side, which will save us from security attacks like CSRF attacks. Next, with the help of tokens, we can maintain our application as a stateless, and it's very easy to scale in microservices scenarios where I want to scale my application horizontally. In all such scenarios, we don't have to worry because we are not tying up our user or authentication details to a single server by maintaining a session on the server. Instead, since we are using token-based authentication mechanism, even if you have load balancers that redirect your load to multiple servers inside your microservice architecture, still the token-based authentication will work because the tokens can be available to all the servers inside your application through a common point called authorization server. In the previous videos, we have built an EasyBank application. In that application, without our knowledge, we are using two tokens which helped us not providing the credentials again and again. One is the CSRF token, which protect us from CSRF attacks, and the other one is the JSON ID, which is maintained on the server side HTTP session. And this JSON ID token help us in validating the request again and again without credentials on the backend. Let's try to explore that in the next video about these two tokens that we generated so that it will make more clear to us. Thank you and see you in the next video. Bye.